So you're welcome to another dBrown Consulting webinar. I'm David. I'll be taking for the duration of this webinar. It should take about 40 minutes. And so we're here to solve Excel and Power BI problems. This is the dBrown Consulting Excel and Power BI Clinic. So I'll just start with the poll and do the intros. So if you could answer the poll questions. Okay, so we're ending the poll now. We've got quite a number of entries already. VLOOKUP, about 70% of us here have used VLOOKUP. 60% have used pivot tables. Only 17% Power Pivot. Nobody has used Power Query. And then 42% index and match, which is quite impressive, right? We really have an impressive bunch here. All right, so that's it. I'll close the poll now. So nice statistics. Quite nice. So I'll just quickly reintroduce myself. I'm David. I'll be taking on this session on solving your real-world Excel and analytic problems with Power Pivots, Power BI, Excel. And a bit about me, I founder of dBrown Consulting. I have over 15 years experience working on modeling, business intelligence, financial modeling, and tax consulting from Arthur Andersen, KPMG, and now DBC. And I have been using Excel for about 22 years. And I do a lot of financial modeling. I'm also an international consultant to the World Bank and an ATD Master Trainer and ATD Master Instructional Designer. So a lot of what I do is both consulting and training as well. DBC, the firm sponsoring this webinar, is 10 years old this year, and we provide payroll outsourcing, financial consulting, and training services. And so we provide this for all clients, not just in Nigeria, internationally as well. So we've taught in 4 continents. And the outline for this session is we're going to answer your questions you sent ahead. We'll do a general live Q&A, and then we'll do some bonus tips and tricks. I'll give you some bonus tips and tricks as well. So for your questions came in, quite a lot of questions came in on pivot or pivot tables. How do you create pivot tables? Some came in on formulas, financial modeling. How do you use the offset function, shortcuts? Lots of people wanted to know about shortcuts, so we'll talk a lot about shortcuts and general questions on writing complex formulas or writing complex calculations. So those were your questions. So what we do normally is we list them out, and we list out about 5 that cover nearly what everybody asked, and then we now touch each one. So building pivot tables is the first one. So I'll jump straight into that, building pivot tables. Now, when you build a pivot table, let me just get some data. So if I have a look at the data here, your data must follow certain rules before you can build a pivot table. So I'll just list some out, some very important ones. The data obviously has to be in one single sheet, obviously. You can't build pivot tables in Excel from 2 different sheets, unless, of course, you have the new tool called Power Pivot, which is another topic. So for pivot table, you must have your data in one place. And that data must have one row of headings. So if you look at these headings here, they should be in a single row. So you can't have 2 rows of headings. You shouldn't have any empty columns or empty rows. So no empty columns. Your columns shouldn't be empty or empty rows. Your dates must be in a single column. All your dates must be in a single column. And another rule is every unique item must have its own heading or have its own column. So for example, I have line of business here. It has its own column. I know some reports that line of business, there will be a line of business heading, and then you have data under that. Then you have another line of business heading, and then data under that as well. That's not allowed. You can't do that. And of course, I said this already, your dates must be in a single column. It's very important that your dates are in one column like this, because some data, you could have dates going this way, where you have January, February, March, April, May, June, like that, and that doesn't work. Now, if you look to the right here, I have some reports already preset. If you look at this report, so this report has various rows and columns. Now, when you're designing a report in a pivot table, once your data is good and clean, the very first thing you should do really is draw your report on paper. So this is kind of, we're using this as the paper we're drawing our report on. So once you draw your report on paper, then you ask yourself, what items are in these categories? What items are in my rows? So as you could see, my rows are made up of model. I think the model maybe is a product model. So my rows are made up of models, or have models in my rows. Then what do I have in my column? What do I have in my column? As you can see here, I have North Central, Northeast, Northwest. So I have my regions in my columns. I have my regions in my columns. So two questions I've asked: what do you have in your rows? What do you have in your columns? And then what data are you analyzing? So if you look in here, I'm analyzing revenue, but I'm analyzing revenue as a percentage of grand total. So that's how I'm analyzing revenue. And then you now ask the last question, which is, what can I use to filter my entire report? So I've asked what is in my rows, what is in my columns, what data am I analyzing, and then what can I use to filter my entire report? So that means if I click on something, I can see this whole report, for example, could be for a location, like maybe, no, this could be for a market. I don't know, different market. So you could see the market up here, or line of business. If I pick a certain line of business, the entire report will change. That means line of business is my report filter. So once you write those things down, then you can build your pivot table. So I'll just go into the pivot table. You click anywhere within your data that follows those rules. Then you go to Insert Pivot Table. So this basically highlights your data for you. You don't need to click anything because your data follows the rules, and just click OK, and that creates a pivot table. Now, based on your plan, if you look at my plan here, based on this report that I have on paper, I want to see model in my rows and region in my columns. So I can start with that. So model, if you see model here, you drag model to your rows, and then you drag region to your columns. Where's region here? Can't see. Okay, there. Region, no region here, no region in this data set. So I'll just drag state to my columns. So I have model and state. We have rows have my model, and then the states are in my columns. Then I can analyze revenue. I just take revenue and drop it in value. That's the values I'm analyzing, revenue. Then I could take something like line of business, and I take it to my filter here. That is my report filter to the top right. That means I can filter this entire report by something. Let's say parts, for example. This is it filtered by parts. I could say I filter my entire report by service plan. So the first thing is you put your data, write it on paper, actually write it on paper, and then plan it. What's in my rows, what's in my columns, what am I analyzing, and then what can filter the entire report. And you just place them in the appropriate place in this pivot table. Now, if you look at the report that we had, it was a percentage of grand total. So what we want is, I don't want to see this 509 million. What I want to see is, what is it as a percentage of this grand total to the right? So how I need to compare it as a percentage of grand total. That's what I need to do. Now, to make this report a bit more legible, if you can see, the total number of columns are quite large. Now, some people ask, when do I put stuff in a column and when do I put it in a row? Well, there are too many items on the column here, and there are quite a few items on the row. So I'm going to flip it. You can just take your stuff that is in your column, drag it to your row, and take stuff that is in your row and drag it to your column. And now we've changed the format of the report. Now, any analysis you want to do with values in your pivot table, you just right-click. Okay, you just right-click. Anytime you want to do anything in your pivot table, go to where you want to do that analysis and right-click. So I just click anywhere here and right-click. Then I want to show, if you look at there's something called show value as. So under show value as, there's currently no calculation going on. I could say percentage of grand total. Then that just gives me a percentage of grand total. So everything is a percentage of grand total. So I could right click again, go to show value as, and you can see all sorts of analysis you could do. Percentage of column total. What does that mean? That means each column, whatever the values are for that column, we're doing a percentage of the column total. So this Abia state, this place Abia state, it contributes for this particular product 25006C, it contributes 4.9% of the total for that product. So 4.9% of the sales of that product comes from Abia State. That's what percentage of grand total means. Percentage of column total. This is a column total percentage. I could right click as well. I want to say, okay, well, how does each product sell in a particular state? So I want to know what's the best selling product of each state. I could just right click one of these values again, and then I go to show value as percentage of row total. And then now for Abia State, straight away you can see that this product 3002P is the highest selling product in Abia State. Yeah, and the least selling product probably is this 1.69, this 405. So straight away you can have an analysis of a product just by right clicking and showing your numbers. What about if you want to actually show the values? I want to show both the values and the percent. I want to know what is this 7.55%? What's the amount there? What you need to do simply is drag your revenue again. So we're going to analyze two things. We're analyzing revenue sums as well as percentages of totals or percentages of row. We have two analyses we want to do with revenue. The sum of the revenue as well as percentage of total or percentage of column or row. So you just drag revenue a second time into value field. Once you drop it, you can now see one revenue field is percentage. We can change the heading. I just change the heading to percentage contribution. And then this one can just be revenue. Now, if I type revenue and enter, it's going to reject it. You're going to see an error message come up. And that's because you can't use the same name as a field. You can't just write revenue here. It's just one of the restrictions. Well, there's a trick we Thank you, everybody. And well, hold on a minute. I just want to give you one quick bonus. Let me give you a bonus. We usually give a bonus at the end. So the bonus is you have a special offer for any of our courses. If you can state that you attended a webinar, you get a 30% discount. So we just say, I attended this webinar. Obviously, we have your email address already, so we'll be able to verify that. That's very simple. So we have Excel courses coming up. We have financial modeling courses coming up. And another thing, we've basically started a meetup group. So we'll be meeting probably in our offices for some free highlights of Excel and Power BI and Power Pivot. So if you go to meetup.com, look for Nigeria Excel Power BI user group. In fact, you will see notices for the webinars, you see notices for any meetups we're doing where you can come and just share all your skills or learn from anybody that's basically launching or sponsoring the meetup. So be sure to go check that meetup. And then, of course, be sure to take advantage of our free 30% discount. So, guys, it's been a pleasure. I hope to see you in the next webinar. You can tell your friends. It's all free. It happens every third Thursday of the month, at 9 to 10 a.m. So glad to have you guys. See you. Talk to you guys later. Bye.